Hey there, good people. It's me, Stewart Bell, business coach, founder of Adero Coaching Consulting, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And today I wanted to record a mini podcast. And I wanted to talk about a trend that I've noticed happening, particularly here in Australia, when it comes to financial advice practices. And it might be happening elsewhere. So let's chat about it a bit more. And as I actually record this, I've just come back from the UK. I've had 4 great weeks over there, spending time with some family. I spent some time with Alan Smith and the other guys from the Real Advisor podcast. Caught up with some old friends that I haven't seen for a long, long time, and generally had that kind of experience where you disconnected. One of the great things about when you're overseas, in particular in the UK, which is almost diametrically opposite time zones from here in Australia, is you can kind of corral all of the working day into early 2 hours in the morning. For me, it was 6 to 8 a.m. I'd get up early, I'd do some coaching meetings, I'd answer some emails, and then Australia would shut down for the most part, and I could just get on with enjoying myself. And I think when you're in that kind of environment, it gives you open to look at things and kind of decompress. And I've one of the coaching programs I'm part of right now, which is a strategic coach, one of the things that they're big on is the idea that being able to step away and completely disconnect from business thinking is one of the things that helps you to avoid burnout and enables you to make sure that you're always enthusiastic and capable of seeing the wood for the trees. And while I was over there, one of the things that I guess I noticed it's been going on for a while, is I think never have I seen at any point in recent memory as many acquisitions happening of small businesses being bought up by large businesses. Now, you'd argue that there's always been an acquisition aspect to our industry, and there's always been buyout, but there's something about it right now. I've had 2 clients in the last year. One a long-standing client I worked with for years, another one a more recent client who have had their businesses bought. And in many ways, I know that both of them were very much businesses that went out with the idea of creating something. And don't get me wrong, I think for many, many people, the exit of your business and to become part of something bigger is a great opportunity. And in many ways, it can be the pinnacle. But I wondered whether or not some of this trend is coming around because it is increasingly difficult to thrive, maybe even survive, as a smaller practice in this industry. Now, I think before we go anywhere near this, I think it's really important to define, what do we mean by a small practice? Sometimes you'll hear people talk about one-man bands. Now, personally, I don't think a one-man band, in other words, a single advisor, male or female, can necessarily thrive in this industry. You're always going to need a support team. And in the context of what I do, and if you know a little bit about the journey model that I use with businesses, one of the most important things to do early on is not necessarily employ a paraplanner or an associate or any of those sort of things. One of your most important hires early on is kind of like your business manager, your operations manager, the person who is you can hand over their running of the calendar and the inbox and the systems and the workflow, and know that they can manage that side of things and in many ways manage you. So when I think about a small practice, I'm not thinking about a sole person. Typically, I'm thinking about a small practice as being a business where you've got a primary advisor, you've got a support function in the business, and maybe even you've got someone on board who helps to work with the advice documentation. Sometimes that might be outsourced. That to me is a small practice. So minimum, we're talking about the small, the one man or the one person operation. I think a small practice I would define as being 3 people. And my question is about whether or not what's been spoken about in the industry for a long, long time, these kind of practices won't survive, there's no scale, there's no capability. Is it finally coming to fruition? And I would agree with the sentiment that if you're a small operation and you're trying to compete against larger firms who have the resources to employ more staff or work with more systems or invest the time in specialized technology people and have that kind of framework, it's going to be hard, and particularly hard if you're going to compete on price. And here's the point I think I want to make throughout all of this. I don't think the era of the small practice is at an end. In fact, I think the small, let's call it boutique, let's call it niche, let's call it specialist instead of just referring to them as small, has as much part to play than ever before. What I think is potentially challenged more so than ever before is a practice who are trying to operate in a very, very small footprint, and they're trying to provide generalist advice, and they're trying to operate at a pricing level that doesn't allow them the profitability in their business to reinvest in the things they need. The truth is, when I'm analyzing a practice and the growth trajectory they're on, if you want to take a practice all the way to its most evolved format, let's say we call it the franchise in disguise. It's a leverage model. You've got scale, you've got specialization, you're fully systemized, you've got a great brand, great IP, you're training your own superstars, you're digitally native, you maybe even built your own systems. Those phases you're going to go through to get that include a period where you're going to have to make sure you got the profit to invest in the systemization, the technology, to bring on board those team and start to train them up. And then as you work as an advisor, step away and start to specialize, bring in a practice management role, bring in a head of advice, all of these sort of things until you start to get real growth. Now, if you're going to go through that journey, profit is the thing you need. I think Vern Harnish described failing to have the fuel in the tank to make it through the dangerous middle, this area where, it feels like you're working really, really hard, but you're actually not, because you've got to build systems and you've got to put all the infrastructure in place that will allow you to grow. Profit is the fuel that gets you through that. And I think as businesses who don't build profit before they go for scale, they can get stuck in that dangerous middle. But here's the thing. For practice that I'm talking to, if I say, hey, do you want to build a practice that is big, that is scalable? Some people will say, no, that's not the goal. I'm not gearing up to sell a practice for 10, 12, 14 times EBIT. That's not my game. My game is I want to create a highly profitable business that enables me to fuel wealth for myself and my clients. And for myself, I want to do it by generating income, which I can then invest outside. This is really important because there are certain people who build businesses for the sale value, and there's certain people who build businesses to generate income. Call them lifestyle businesses if you want. There's nothing wrong with that. What's important is that you know the game you're playing. But of course, if you're doing that, if your intention is to stay small, to not have a massive amount of people you need to deal with, not to go through one of those barriers where suddenly communication needs to be structured and HR needs to be structured, and you need to make sure you're bringing people together to communicate regularly and clearly, that you've got people on the same page, that you've got all those things that come with building a larger business. If you don't want to do that, then you've got to be highly profitable. And typically, the best way to build a super profitable business is to specialize, to focus on a niche of people, not because they're the only people you can help, but because the specific offering that you're going to make to them and the way that you work and what you deliver and how you deliver it and the expertise that you have in your head enables you to do things better or achieve better results or do things more efficiently or with less hassle and less delay. And as a result, you can build a profit margin. Now, can you build a highly profitable business without niching? Good question. I don't think you can. You have to have that added value. And it either comes from being able to charge a fee that is above the norm, or alternatively, building so much efficiency in the business on the bottom end that you can do things better, twice as fast, with twice as less effort because you know them. Or even better, do both. Where you're working with people who you can charge an additional fee because of the value you create, and you can also do it more efficiently because you know and you've done it before. So, I want to record this because there is so much change going on. Feels like every time we round a corner, there's another new paradigm sticking its head up. And right now, there's a lot of acquisition going on. And there will be a lot of discussion about whether or not the era of the small practice is at an end. I think it's harder now for small practices to thrive and survive unless they have that X factor, something different that enables them to build something that's profitable. And that can be done in a specific way by focusing down on a niche. Do you agree? Do you have a different view? You currently have a small business and you're wondering whether or not you can thrive? Or maybe you've got this experience like a lot of people I've spoken to, where they built something which is specialist and niche and they know exactly the market they're in. As a result, they can stay small but still produce amazing outcomes for them, their clients, their team, the business. Anyway, let me know what you think. Hope this has been useful. I'll speak to you soon.